And Singapore is a good place to be. I've been there. I think it's very safe, right? Very safe and extremely vibrant and close from India.
Very close to India. So that was the reason of choosing Singapore. So at a
how
young
many
age,
times have you come back to India?
Oh wow, wow, that's a good question. I think I try to come back every 45 days. 30 to 45 days.
And by the way, so we happen to live in the same residential complex in Gurgaon, and I was talking to him on phone. I was like, okay, let's meet once. And okay, I live here. I'm in sector 43. I'm also in sector 43. I'm near Galleria. I'm also near there. I'm in. That's like across my lawn. Hi guys, welcome to another exciting episode of Scholar Strategy, and I have a very special guest with me tonight. His name is Armaan Dhanda, and he is a second year bachelor student at NUS Singapore. He's doing his bachelor's in engineering from there, and he's double majoring in chemical and biomolecular engineering with a second major in innovation and design. So very exciting journey, and he's studying there on full scholarship. So today we are going to ask him a lot of questions, but this video is more about NUS Singapore. What is it like to study there? What are some pros and cons? And if you're considering it, then it will give you some good information. So let's get started. Okay, so I guess the first thing let's get started with is, what does it take to get into NUS Singapore?
That's a good question. I'll talk about the history first. I've always wanted to study in Singapore. Started preparing in the 9th grade. That was the core reason behind studying hard for exams. Fortunately, unfortunately, whatever, it was the COVID batch. Our results came on the 24th of July. 16th July was when NUS wanted it.
This is 2021.
2021, yes.
So you finished your 12th in 2021.
Exactly. I finished my 12th in 2021. I was very hopeful I'd get in, but their batch had already started. So they encouraged me to reapply. In the same period, I enrolled into St. Stephen's College. Had a blast there, story for another time. But reapplied and very fortunately got into my main program, into the program I'm currently enrolled in. Okay. So NUS at large predominantly looks at your academic profile and your consistency. Your extracurriculars is seen as a second step in most cases. But if you're exceptionally well or exceptionally great at a sport, let's say, or even academic pursuits, then they give you admission. So one example here would be two people who are senior to me who were silver medalists in International Olympiad for Informatics. They got offers without looking at their academic profile. So it either has to be exceptionally well or you do very, very well in your academic pursuits, preferably more than the
Okay, so what I'm hearing is the first criteria is academics. Yeah. So your percentage or your GPA, your grades in class 12th is what they're looking at. And exceptions are only those cases where you have done something stellar in some other aspect, either sports or some other kind of activity, then they're ready to compromise. But otherwise, academics is the first and foremost priority.
But even on an extracurricular basis, they place more importance on academic achievements, like I don't know, the Olympiad example is a good one.
Right, okay, rather than pure sports kind of thing, so, as opposed to US and some other places.
That was true in my time when I applied for the both times, 2021 and 2022.
Okay, yeah. So what were your grades like?
I was COVID batch, I didn't give the exams, but very fortunate to have 98.75% in ISC with physics, chemistry, math and biology.
So, मतलब अगर NUS target कर रहे हैं, so grades are uncompromisable.
Grades are uncompromisable. Seeing a 99 on 100 or like a 45 on 45 in IB or a 15-80 in the SAT or 36 on ACT is commonplace. Like every second person has that. So that's...
Yeah. Okay. I know you have done interesting projects also in your school. Right. So tell us a little bit about that, because that's also part of your profile. Yeah. So yes, what kind of projects had you done?
Sure. So since the 9th grade, I was very interested in biotechnology and health as a broader concept through food. So in my 11th grade, I did a project on bio-leather using the culture of kombucha. Some more projects were around prevention of diabetes, prevention of breast cancer. And there was one very interesting project on a salivary test for pancreatic cancer. So always interested in the biotech space.
Right.
But at NUS, just trying to fulfill that gap again.
Right, right. And so were you able to publish papers somewhere?
So
Were these research papers?
I did try, but the knowledge at that level, like I know people who have published, but I couldn't publish at them.
So these are not published. So okay.
Not published. They weren't published, but most of them were student-driven initiatives.
Right.
So the salivary test one actually ended up not winning, but nominated for the Bal Puraskar, Pradhan Mantri Bal Puraskar, which is the highest civilian honor under the age of 18.
Awesome.
I didn't get it. The people who were running the program got that.
Okay.
Very close friends now.
Okay. Now let's talk about curriculum structure of education. What education system do they follow? How flexible is the major, minor? How did you decide your major?
Sure. That's also a good question. So I'd like to call Singapore the perfect balance between an American education and a British education.
Okay.
The British education, similar to a lot of Indian colleges, is very stringent. Like you have to study these courses. It's not malleable. US on the other spectrum is very malleable. You can do a course in psychology, while engineering, while math, etc., etc. Singapore is a fine balance. There's some sort of a structure with certain courses that you can mix and match. So the reason I chose chemical engineering was that you can enter a lot of fields after it. It's a very good starting point, and it also helps you scale up, which is a core requirement in what I want to do in the future. As far as majors and minors are concerned, you can declare it until your 5th semester. So that's also pretty malleable.
Okay. And how about choosing the second major? What made you choose innovation and design?
Oh yeah. So innovation and design is a very hands-on course. It builds on design thinking as a concept. A lot of on-ground, like to be very honest, in the last 1 year, most of the practical skills that I've learned have come from that one course. So it relays very well into product design and into entrepreneurship. Like tells you how do you commercialize a product, what people look into, which I'm very excited about. Very interested.
Right. By the way, Armaan is working on a startup and they're going to soon launch a product also. So you want to talk 2 lines about that?
Sure. So started Possible Foods, realized that there's a huge gap in the market with 4D meats that are used in pet food, which are either dead, decaying, dying, or diseased. We are utilizing side streams of the mushroom industry to supplement that gap using vegetarian sources of protein that mimic nutrition and aroma of meat. So sustainability, pet food combined.
Okay, let's now talk about the application process for Singapore. Just quick touch points because I know there are so many complications in undergrad application. So what all do they look at? How many rounds are there? Things like that.
Sure. Singapore is a very simple process. It's just a simple, I think, $26-30 application in which you just mention, I think there's an optional, in my time, there was an optional essay. It's nice if you fill it. There's an optional letter of recommendation from your school, most likely because they know you the best. But after that, they might screen you for scholarships if you have the grades for it.
Okay.
So recapping, grades being the benchmark of admission mostly, unless you have brilliant achievements in other spaces.
Right.
Then they look at your extracurriculars to see if the cohort is well balanced or not. But the first criteria is grades.
Okay. And do you have to write like multiple essays? You said one optional essay, but is there a compulsory essay also?
In my time, there wasn't a compulsory essay. The compulsory essays are if you are nominated by the university for a scholarship. So I'm currently on the Science and Technology Scholarship. They'll nominate you. They'll ask you to answer 3 questions, mostly around why you're doing what you're doing. And then there'll be an online interview which happened on the 14th for me.
Okay. So this was part of initial application itself, or you submitted the application and then this was additional thing they invited you later on?
Yeah, it is the latter. So you first apply as a candidate. I got the admission offer on the 27th of June.
Okay.
And then they said that you've been nominated for this depending on your I think grades was the first factor, but also what I had written in the SOP, in the power of my LOR, possibly. Quite
so
possibly.
You submitted both the LORs and optional essay?
I did.
Okay. And did this scholarship, did you Did you have to apply for it?
No. So at NUS, again, I'm saying in my time, because it's been 2 years, 1 year I think, but wiser to say in my time. In my time, no, you had to be nominated by the college. There's no application process. But at NTU, for the same scholarship, the Science and Tech, you have to apply.
Okay.
And the prerequisite for most scholarships in Singapore is that you have to opt in for the tuition grant or the bond.
Right. Let's talk about the bond thing, because that's, I think, something unique to Singapore.
It definitely is. So a bond, for people who are unaware, is a 3-year servitude period in Singapore after you graduate. So it's a 4-year degree followed by 3 years of working in Singapore or a Singaporean entity. You can also be self-employed. You have to fulfill certain criteria. But the benefit for a student is that it reduces your tuition fee by 40 to 50%. So per annum, instead of like 25 lakhs, it'll be 12.5 lakhs. So it's more of a subsidy in return of you being and contributing to Singapore's economy for 3 years.
Okay, so let me summarize this. So if you had not gotten you are on a 100% scholarship, but otherwise, what was the fee like per year?
So I had received the bond. In that scenario, I can tell you Singapore dollars and then convert it. If you're on the bond, then per annum tuition fee is $17,000 to $18,000. $19,000, sorry, which is around 12 lakhs.
Okay.
If you're not on the bond and a regular student, then it's around $38,000, $39,000, which is 24-ish lakhs.
So okay, so almost double.
Almost double, like it's a 50%.
And you have the
reduction.
choice of accepting the bond or not.
So here's a disclaimer: whenever you're applying, application period is I think November to February. Take it with a grain of salt, but in that period there'll be a tick box. You just have to tick it that you want to be considered for this or not. A lot of people don't do it. Just be very careful, because once you get the offer, you can't say
you
that
can't
I
then
want.
switch.
You can't.
Acha.
So wait, you can switch only if you. So the thing is, you have to indicate your interest. When they offer you, they'll again give you an option to accept or not.
Okay. So then the advice is check it, right?
Wiser to check it, but then you have to be wise to check it or not check it.
Right.
I can also talk about the pros and cons of this
Bond thing?
Yeah.
I mean, should it daunt you? It daunts some people. So the advantage is that you can almost get 50% off your tuition.
Correct.
But then you have to be 3-year bond period in Singapore. I see that as a positive. How do you see it?
Exactly. So my scholarship requires me to stay there for 6 years. 6 years is a substantial period of your life, that too in your 20s. So I consider it to be a 6-year guaranteed visa. Because why would they give you money and then ask you to leave the country?
Right.
But a lot of people see it as a burden because they want to go to a different place to work or to study further. But depends on personal choice.
Right. So you have to evaluate your circumstances, what are your future plans, and then decide. But for most of the scholarship, I guess they would have this bond constraint, right?
So 6-year bond is for the science and technology scholarship. There are few other full scholarships as well at NUS, like the NUSC Merit Scholarship, that has a 3-year servitude period but full coverage.
Okay, but, so it depends. So check it out. But mostly in all courses, I've seen some kind of bond option is there.
So it's very clear. If you have to be considered for even in-course scholarship, like if you have a brilliant GPA, and you have to be considered for that, in most cases you have to be on the bond. Because the country wants to invest in you so that you invest in the country later.
Right. The way we are, and we have discussed this, the way we are looking at it is like the job market is so tough, the global job market right now. But this is kind of getting you that work permit. They want to employ you for 3 years. So I think it's a good option for you. Right. So let's talk about some pros and cons of Singapore in general and then in US. So what do you think are the biggest advantages of studying in Singapore?
The core reason of choosing Singapore over the other options was satisfaction of parents. I think that's the biggest point. First is proximity.
Because of the proximity.
Yeah, the proximity to India is a huge thing. People in the US have to plan a lot in order to come back. It's a very long flight. If you're in Chennai, I think the flight is 3 hours.
Right.
Which is nothing. And the return flight is again 15,000. Delhi is 20,000-25,000. Very manageable for an international place.
Definitely.
Very, very manageable. The second big reason is the safety of the country. So I'd like to give an example here. A lot of people use their laptops to reserve a place.
Yeah.
They leave their phone there to reserve a place. Like
Yeah.
it's that safe. It's extremely
Yeah.
safe.
No, and I took a bus at 1 or 1:30 a.m. once in Singapore. And it's like
Right.
ridiculous how comfortable you feel doing that in Singapore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. I have to rewire myself when I come here.
Yes.
Third is again on a safety tangent. It is completely drug free. Our campus actually is alcohol and smoke free. I wouldn't like to comment on the pros and cons, but it's extremely
No,
safe
and
as a place.
it's a very big concern for parents, I know, because many parents raise this factor for me. So I would say Indian colleges are probably more likely to
Yeah.
find those things, but Singapore
Exactly.
is very strict in that matter, and
Yeah.
you just cannot
Yeah.
do that, because what do they do if they find you in possession? I think,
Hold
yeah,
on.
you are out of the country.
Yeah. So I think I've heard of this story. There were some people who had come on exchange from Europe for an MBA program. They were involved in some sort of a similar scene, and they were immediately deported without anything. So they take it very seriously.
They take it very seriously.
Very serious, and it's actually enforced. It's not
Right.
key. It's written and it's not enforced. It's actually enforced on campus.
Right. And so for undergrads, I think where parents have that concern, that's a major
But for
plus.
people who are seeing it, it's a fun place to be. There's
Right, so
definitely.
it doesn't mean
No, it
it's
doesn't.
not
It doesn't.
fun. Yeah.
It doesn't mean that. It doesn't
Yeah.
mean that. It's definitely a lot of fun. Campus is smoke and alcohol free, smoking alcohol, but there are places where you
Right.
can go, but completely drug free, completely hard drug free.
Awesome. So one downside I've heard of Singapore is PR is extremely hard, right?
Yeah.
If people want to settle down permanently. I mean, that's one of the biggest reason why people consider Canada or Australia.
Exactly.
Any thoughts or feedback on that?
Sure. So if you're coming in as a master's student or even later on, and you're not staying in Singapore for a long period, chances are very low. But if you're coming at the undergraduate level and you're with a bond of like 3 years, 6 years, that's brilliant. But if you're staying there for like 4 years of the degree, then 3 years as servitude, chance of getting a PR increases. All of this is hearsay. It's hearsay.
Okay.
Logically, it works. But
Okay.
the government has a cap on the percentage of Indians they want to give
Right.
PR to.
Yeah.
I think it's 9 or 11%,
Okay.
which is already almost breached. So
Yeah.
up down, it usually does happen.
Okay. So within that pool, you think they would give priority to somebody who has studied there, been working
Right. So
on there for some time?
a reason for that is when you're 18, 19, you're much more malleable
Yeah.
and you tend to understand what the country values. Like if they value X and not Y,
That's a
you
good
know
point.
that. So
Right.
you tend to be one with the country.
Right. So they would prefer someone younger who has been conditioned to that,
Exactly.
the whole country values and culture like that.
But coming to the values, I think what Indian families in India values, Singapore also values very similar things. So family values are intact there. They also value hard work a lot. And the best part about Singapore is that the country runs on merit. If you have merit, you will get opportunities. It's as straightforward as that. China.
So have you seen any cultural challenges, or were you able to like adapt quickly and feel at home?
So 80% of the student population is actually locals, Singaporeans.
Right.
The 20% international, I don't think there was a huge problem because
Okay.
everybody is in the same place.
Yeah.
They've left their home, they've come to a different place.
Yeah.
With the local population, it takes time to understand what they value.
Okay.
You have to make an effort to be part of the group.
Yeah.
So that has been like not a challenge, but a learning process.
And that's part of study
part,
abroad, I
definitely.
think, anywhere you go. What's the residencing situation like? Do you have to live in dorms? Where do most of the students live?
Sure. So for international students, on-campus housing is guaranteed for the first 2 years.
Okay.
It's guaranteed.
Okay.
There are different types of accommodation, but that would make the video very long.
Okay. What are the living costs like?
Living costs, if you're on campus housing is subsidized. So I'll talk only housing a month for a single room.
Yeah.
It is around $600 to $800 is
Okay.
a good range for a single room with AC.
Okay.
Yeah.
AC is kind of a must there. It's very humid.
So 800 Singapore dollars, which is
So how much is
50,000.
that?
600 is like, it's very reasonable for Singapore because
Right.
if you're in an apartment in the center of the city with one room in an apartment.
Yeah.
That one room would be $1,200,
Yes.
$1,500
Yes.
a month.
Yes. So,
So-
this you're getting to $600 to $800, which is in Indian
Subsidized.
rupee, how much?
600 would be 40,000 rupees.
30K, 40K. Okay.
36 to 40,000 a month. And you're there for 8 months, not 12. So if you're taking the math, take that into consideration as well.
Okay, that was awesome about Singapore and NUS in particular. And apart from NUS, what are some of good universities that people apply to? NTU?
Yeah, NTU is one. There's one also.
SMU?
SMU is also there.
Okay.
NTU is predominantly known for engineering and STEM courses, but they have an up-and-coming business school. Similar case for SMU, it's more oriented towards economics and business. but
Business, right.
they also have an upcoming computer science major. And NUS is more of a mix of all the majors that's there.
Got it. And lastly, about visa. So you are on a student visa?
Correct.
It was easy to get?
Pretty straightforward. The process is like, it seems complicated, but it's straightforward.
Okay.
You get a single entry visa called the IPA.
Okay.
You go there, NUS, NTU, SMU, all of them organize a thing called off-site enrollment, OSE.
Huh.
So they usually, the government people come on campus and they convert your single entry visa into a multiple entry 4-year student pass.
Okay.
So you're a long-term student, you get a
Okay.
physical card by the government.
Okay. So you have that card now, and every time you're coming, you don't have to worry about visa again and again.
Not at all. You only show the card and it's relevant everywhere.
Okay.